What's going on, Disney fans? It is Disney Dan here with another episode of Distory, a Disney history lesson. And in this episode, we're going to take a look back at the evolution of everyone's favorite Pluto. No, not this Pluto. No, I'm sorry. This Pluto, Mickey Mouse's best friend and companion, and everyone's favorite Disney pup. Now, to get a good look at the evolution of Pluto's costume characters, we've got to go back to 1950, of course, to the Ice Capades, when Disney and the Ice Capades have partnered up to present some Disney characters during their live ice skating performances. Now, of course, we've seen some of these characters before, but Pluto, in particular, is one of the most interesting characters of these costumes in that it was a two-person costume, just like those silly horse costumes you see these days in a lot of jokes where someone plays the butt and someone plays the head. It's kind of a large, fabric-heavy costume with a head that was detached from the neck to give itself a full range of movement, a thick green collar, round eyes with kind of girly eyelashes, a thin little short tongue, and kind of a round, flat nose. It was a very interesting design. I'm not a big fan of it, but hey, you know, they were making it work at the time. As everyone, of course, knows, in 1955, when Walt Disney opened up his now world-famous Disneyland, he didn't have any costume characters to roam around the park, and so he reached out to the Ice Capades and borrowed the costumes we just saw. So they took off their ice skates and took to the streets. Now, these characters are good from a distance, but up close, they kind of looked a little frumpy and weird, like you can see from this fan photo. It's all lumpy and saggy and sad-looking. It's a little bit pathetic, and you can see how Pluto moved here in this opening day broadcast of Disneyland. It's definitely an interesting choice. It wasn't until 1960 that the Disneyland people decided to design their own Pluto costume and turn it into a one-person walk-around. Now, this is a lot more of a park-friendly costume. You didn't need two people. It didn't look all weird and frumpy. It had a really nice, big, sculpted, solid head with pupils that kind of changed size depending on the year. You can see in these photos the pupils get big and small, and they look here and they look there. But otherwise, the head was kind of this really cool defined thing. His mouth was closed, and he was given a kind of short, flat, shiny nose with some whiskers. He had really, really long ears, which was kind of cool, and his paws changed from design to design. Some of them had a solid black paw, some of them had individual circles like you see here. So the bodysuit of the character changed a little bit over time, but the head sculpt remained the same. 1973 brought along the live stage show called Disney on Parade. So this is a cool show that toured the country, allowed all the people around the world, no matter if you could visit the parks or not, to visit their favorite Disney characters live, which was pretty cool. Now, this Pluto had a little bit of a redesign, larger snout with more defined ridges. His eyes, as the pupils in his eyes got round and were added some eyeliner around them that kind of appeared and disappeared. It kind of changed here and there. His ears kind of shrunk up just a little bit. They weren't nearly as long, and he got a thick orange collar added to his design, which would eventually show up in later designs in the park, but still absent in the parks themselves because this was a touring show. So this costume was separate from the ones that you would see in the park. It kind of had a little bit of a different look. 1977 took that original 1960s Pluto that we just saw a little bit earlier in the video and gave it eyebrows in a very, very interesting choice. So it was the same costume, the same, sculpt and bodysuit and everything like that. They just slapped eyebrows on the character, which I think looked a little weird. It wasn't until a year later, I guess maybe from the eyebrow fiasco, that they decided to redesign Pluto entirely in a brand new look specifically for Disneyland and soon to be Disney World. But the weird thing about this design for Disneyland in specifics is that it had these gigantic pupils. It looked like it was on this sugar rush high. It looked like his eyes were about to open up and eat children. They were so darn big. So when they brought this character to Disney World later in 1978, they kind of did some minor tweaks. That big pupil-eyed Pluto would end up still staying in the parks for many years in Disneyland, but in the Magic Kingdom and around Disney World, this Pluto with smaller pupils was seen parading around. Now, he had still had that orange collar from the Disney on Parade, but it was given a little Pluto tag that hung off of it, which was kind of cool. His mouth was opened up with a big bright red tongue. He had a whole new head sculpt with more defined ridges along the back of the head, around the eyes, and his hands and feet kind of got a resculpt too to look more cartoony. This was definitely them taking the cartoon Pluto that everyone loved and knew on the screen and bringing it to life in the park in a brand new and interesting way. And they really succeeded. I think that this character looks absolutely beautiful and is a really, really nice redesign from everything that led up to it. It's definitely my favorite. And it's the modern Pluto that everyone knows. Now, this Pluto had some interesting costume bloopers. For a good period of time in Disneyland, it was totally missing the front fur that went around the eyes. And so you have this weird, like, kind of like exposed flat foam that I'm not exactly sure what the purpose of it was. And it looks a little odd. And then the other thing is that these eyeballs would occasionally wiggle loose in the costume and end up going cross-eyed and looking weird and different. But hey, what are you going to do? Mistakes happen, right? 2016, though, brought my favorite Pluto, articulated head Pluto. Now, I love the fact that they are adding articulated heads to all these characters, and Pluto is no exception. He looks absolutely beautiful. Now, this redesign allowed him to blink, allowed his mouth to open and close, and really gave the character a ton more life and a ton more, well, I guess I just said the word character, but gave him a lot more character and really made him much more engaging. All the articulated heads did this. He debuted at the Christmas show, Mickey's Most Merriest Christmas Celebration, I believe is what it's called. Probably not, but, you know, feel free to yell at me in the comments. Now, this was a cool costume, and they had to, you know, do a slight redesign of the head, making it a little bit bigger and adding a little bit more definition around the brow. And that was only to give more room for the battery and the motor and the mechanics, but otherwise it kind of looks pretty much the same, other than the smaller pink tongue. So there you go. There's a little bit of an evolution of Pluto over the years. He's gone from some interesting costumes to some really defined and beautiful costumes, and I really love it. He's one of my favorite characters in the park to interact with. And so there you go. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe to our channel if you have not already. I love the new subscribers, and I love also hearing from you. So leave a comment. Let me know about some of the characters you'd like me to do some history research on, and some of the rides, anything you really. I love hearing from you, so leave me comments. Please subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching, guys. See ya!